Sup, you beautiful bastards. Hope you're having a fantastic Friday. Welcome back to the Friday Show. For those of you that are new here, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I talk about the news, world events, and then Friday, it's all about the conversation. I go through the past week of videos, I look at your comments, and I reply back. Because the news show is great and all, but what's the point of it if we can't also have a conversation about it? But before we jump into that, I want to cover a story that has been heavily requested. Just like last week, though, it is a YouTube drama story. It didn't really fit in the Wednesday, Thursday show, but I've seen enough people ask me about it, so let's talk about it. For those who do not care about this sort of thing, jump to here in the time code. And that thing I'm talking about is an update to the iDubbbz RiceGum situation. And the quickie recap is iDubbbz, aka Ian, did a content comp video on RiceGum. And in the video, he exposes past actions RiceGum fans may not have realized happened. He critiques Rice, he burns him, and he hits him with a diss track at the end. And the main thing I said last week, you might remember, it was a little advice for RiceGum. All I would say is if I could give some advice to RiceGum is don't handle this situation like you're doing something against Jake Paul. Ian is a pro, whereas Jake Paul, in certain states, if you were really mean to him, that could be considered a hate crime. Side note, for those of you that understood what I was saying about Jake Paul, thank you, I make the show for you. And the way RiceGum ended up responding was through 4 videos. One was a skit where he was essentially saying, I'm going to respond, then a 23-minute response, part of his diss track back, and then finally his music video. iDubbbz then puts out a content deputy video. And to summarize that video, he goes point by point to show how RiceGum is not correct. And I feel like overall, Ian did a much better job, but hey, you can say that's bias. I've even said I'm a fan of content cops. So let's talk about this story in a different way. Everyone's talking about who wins, who loses. At the end of the day, we're all YouTubers making a lot of money in a way that's, just wasn't possible years ago and doesn't require a ton of skill. We're all winners in that way. Also, no one's career has been ended here. People keep saying it for each of them, but it just isn't true. But Phil, we have to have a winner and a loser. And to that I say, I really think that the only fair way to gauge that is by using something from RiceGum's repertoire. One of the points made in Ian's video, and RiceGum acknowledges this, is he says that people are irrelevant.
Because they're irrelevant! Gabby Show, another pretty irrelevant YouTuber.
He constantly references people's numbers, their number of views, their number of subscribers, and that equating to their worth, their value. So to that I say, let's use RiceGum's metric. The number of total views around this situation, somewhat similar, although I think RiceGum overall has more because he's put out way more videos on it. And so for me personally, I see that as RiceGum realizing that he was taking a hit subscriber-wise, so he was going to maximize his views and thus profit from this situation. But then if you look at the long-term win, the growth win, Ian wins. This whole situation started with the content comp, and since that video's release last Tuesday, Ian gained well over 500,000 new subscribers, whereas RiceGum, as of recording this video, is still in the negative, but his daily subscriber gains are back in the positive, and maybe by the time this goes up, maybe he's net positive. And so that's really it. I think whichever set of numbers you prioritize, that's where you're gonna see a winner. And so ultimately I see a situation where really no one lost. I think that someone did a lot better than someone else. But as far as the numbers, the money, the subscribers, all you had really were winners. That said, let's jump into the Monday show. Monday we talked about the Andy Signore Defy Media sexual harassment claims, the supposedly racist Dove commercial, the Szechuan sauce riot, and the Casey Neistat YouTube ads controversy. On the Andy Signore sexual harassment claims, Mario wrote, I love all the idiots in the comments trying to justify rape and sexual assault. There are multiple witnesses and screenshots of the guy making lewd and sexual comments to employees and asking them to do sexual things. It's his job and it is harassment. That's not tolerated in any job, anywhere, hence why he was fired. It's not like there are video cameras at every rape instance. The evidence is surely enough to fire him for harassment. Stop making excuses. And I'll say just on this subject, it all just seems so crazy to me. Like I feel like if you're running a business, there has to be a certain amount of your brain that is paranoid. In this country and in this industry, people get sue happy. I've heard horror stories about people being sued for things that 100% didn't happen. Someone's just going for a payday. It's horrible. I've had the paranoia instilled in me so much that I won't even have a meeting with an employee without a second person in the room. So the fact that all of a sudden you hear stories about a boss that's like, I want to jerk off in front of you, come here, I don't care if you're reading a book. Or in the case with April, accusations that he tried to take a dildo and put it in her. And that's without going into the fan stuff. My mind goes, how? Actually, first, why? No, don't. And secondly, how do you think you're gonna get away with it? Although the unfortunate thing is between this and the Harvey Weinstein story, apparently people just can for a really, really long time. And then that's gonna make the other victims feel like, oh, well, this is just how it works. I don't wanna make a scene. I don't wanna be known as that person. I don't wanna be blacklisted. Also around this story, I had people asking why I didn't mention that Andy Signore had a wife and kid during all this. And the short answer to that is it doesn't make the things that were alleged against him any worse or any better. Like if there's an allegation that someone tried to take a dildo and insert it into someone that did not want a dildo in them, and the statement is, Andy has a wife, still just as scummy. and he betrayed the trust of his lover? I'd feel like we're missing the main point here. It's also the reason why I didn't talk about Harvey Weinstein's wife in the first video about him. On the Szechuan sauce rides, Media Addict wrote, you know, you can just go to the supermarket and buy the damn sauce, and if you're not useless in the kitchen, you can follow any number of do-it-yourself videos on YouTube and make it yourself. But here's the thing, MA, you are underestimating how lazy people are, and I'm including myself in that statement. You're telling the people going to a fast food establishment to go to the store and go through the process of making a food. As a dad of two, which by the way is my new favorite way to preface anything I'm about to say. As a dad of two, I'm gonna say I'm not a fan. But what I mean to say is someone that has kids, specifically a newborn, my time is very limited. I mean, one, I'm not at a point in my life where I'm going to stand in line outside of a McDonald's. But two, I don't even want to go to the store or pick up food. That's why I use and also am sponsored by Postmates. You're sitting there, you want a meal from a restaurant, you want something from the store, but you don't want to go, boom, Postmates. This is a real screenshot from my inbox when I search Postmates, and that's just a 14-day window. I save so much time, it's so convenient. It's why I love the fact that they're a sponsor, because I legitimately use them every day. Which, by the way, one, MA, thank you so much for asking such a perfect question to include our sponsor in. But secondly, a reminder, as part of the sponsorship, if you download the app, which I'll include the link in the description below, make sure you hit the button in the top left corner, enter promo code PhillyD, and you will get $100 in delivery credit. Then on the Dove ad that had people outraged, from the DeFranco Elite Discord, Gmaster479 wrote, it was a stupid ad, but the reaction was blown out of proportion. Dove has had a brilliant diversity campaign that has been viewed positively in the past, and this was just a poor misstep, nothing to get screamed at about. Yeah, and I have to say, for me personally, the main place where I was annoyed, it wasn't actually even the reaction. Many people were just reacting based on what they were seeing. My anger came from the coverage. On Twitter and Facebook, I saw this story explained just as 2 women involved, not 3, which completely changes the situation. Some places they only show the white and black woman, and they reference the 3rd woman, but they don't show the picture or the video. I end up just wondering, is that poor coverage, or do they want the piece to be juicier? They want there to be outrage. Also, I saw people pointing to an advertisement they did a few years ago where they had a black woman on one side where it says before, a white woman where it says after. And once again, that becomes a situation of, I could see how some people might see that, but when you really look at the actual picture, you see 3 women, a variety of women in the front. And yes, in the back you see before and after, but it's in connection to dry skin and not dry skin. Like, I can look at that picture and understand why some people think that that's racist. But then, and this is the majority of my brain, I look at that picture and I go, oh, well, I see what Dove was going for here. No one wants dry skin. This isn't a black and white thing. It's not like that lady in the middle is the transition photo. But hey, that's my takeaway. And then we had the Tuesday show. Tuesday, we talked about everything surrounding the Harvey Weinstein scandal and ESPN suspending Jemele Hill. On the Harvey Weinstein update, like Matt Walsh said on Twitter, why are we applauding the celebrities for coming forward now? It's easy now, no risk. They cared more for their careers before. Zareel wrote, fuck the I was born in a different time argument. Adapt, you creepy motherfucker. And yeah, actually, on that note, I do have to say the I was born in a different time, or they were born in a different time, that's something you say about your grandma who's not really all there. Says something racist, you're like, I'm sorry, that's my grandma, she's not really all there. She's born in a different time, I'm sorry that she's racist. That's not something you say when you're Harvey Weinstein and you say, you know, I've been working on this for like the past 10 years, and there are accusations against you in that same time period. And seemingly in no way other than your personal struggle have you suffered or been punished. Poor you. And as far as the frustration of people not speaking out, I will say my frustration lies with people who witnessed it, and not really the people that appear to be victims in this situation. One of the constants, other than the trying to get women to watch him shower and he was wearing a bathrobe and then trying to massage them and then put their hands on him. Other than that, one of the biggest constants are how weird and conflicted the women feel. Some of the women saying, am I responsible for this? I don't want to hurt his family. A lot of these women were younger, at the beginning of their careers. Some of them just worked for him. And then maybe you hear the story that this is just the way things are, and maybe you hear a horror story about someone that tried to speak up. Some victims worried that they would just be completely blacklisted, their whole life, their career ruined. The hope is that with all these people sharing their story, the women in Harvey Weinstein's case, Vanderbeek and Terry Crews and outside situations, my personal hope is that by people now speaking out, which you can feel how you do about not talking before, but now that they're talking, what we're seeing is a safety in numbers situation, and hopefully that inspires other people in the future to realize that they don't have to deal with this. Where I am very concerned are these stories like the ones from Ben Affleck. I get concerned when I see people like Rose McGowan saying, you knew, and you're gonna act like you didn't know. But there's also been a conversation of what people knew. knew. I was reading through an interview George Clooney did recently around this whole story, and there was a lot of talk about everyone knew. And he said that just wasn't the case. And to paraphrase him, he was essentially saying we knew that he would go after women in the community. He tried to have sex with actresses, women in the industry, but never to the extent of sexual harassment and sexual assault. But I think even that explanation falls a little bit short because you look at the power differential between Harvey Weinstein and many of these women. If you're someone's boss, you control that person's career, you have power over them and you're abusing power. And I just think it's important more people understand that. On the ESPN suspending Jemele Hill story, Natural and Thick wrote, why is it okay for Donald Trump to tweet the most immature and unprofessional opinion/comments, but we hold an ESPN commentator to higher standards? Trump holds the highest office in our land, yet he is not expected to act with decorum and professional responsibility? How can we expect these very things from anyone else? Well, here's the thing, Thick, you actually provided the answer in your question. He holds the highest office in the land. He essentially was elected boss by the people, or rather the Electoral College, just like the presidents before him, and so that essentially makes him the boss of America with, of course, checks and balances. But with Jemele Hill, she's an employee for a company. She's not the boss. ESPN has a policy that they have put into place, a policy that they have talked to her about after the first incident. While you and many others may not like the move, ESPN can technically do this. I feel like right now ESPN, the NFL, every manager, owner, everyone is just like, can we just chill it with the politics? We jumped into a business primarily about doing stuff with a ball and talking about stuff with a ball. We don't want to be the topic of national controversy every day. ESPN's like, we did a fantasy football thing the other day. People accused us of reliving through slavery. Jemele Hill tweets something on Twitter, all of a sudden we're promoting leftist propaganda and Donald Trump's tweeting at us. But yeah. And so then let's talk about the Wednesday show. Wednesday, we had more Harvey Weinstein updates, the Utah nurse update, California HIV law, and the California fires. On the California HIV legislation story, H7, way too many letters and numbers, wrote, so I was going to defend that HIV legislation until I just now looked it up. Holy shit, the language is ironclad. My angle was going to be, if you have HIV, but maybe you get confused about whether you can transmit it, or maybe you think you're cured or whatever, then I can see how it might be excessive to treat that person like they've engaged in a felonious act, possibly. Like I said, that was my thought process until I looked it up. The language of the law doesn't apply to someone in that situation. It specifically says the individual, quote, acts with specific intent to transmit the infection. The individual has to know they're infected, have the intent of infecting someone, engage in an act that will likely result in infection, and then infect their victim. All of those conditions have to be met. That sounds like a textbook example of felonious behavior to me. Receiver wrote, this is a really complicated law. The problem is, how do you show intent? The proceedings seem to show that it is hard to prove malicious intent versus ignorance. If you've been shown to be HIV positive and you infect someone else, you should be prosecuted to the furthest extent of the law. However, there's a huge gray area for untested individuals. Testing definitely needs to be encouraged frequently and often if you're sexual often, and the stigma around it removed. Well, the first thing I would say is we're not talking about that gray area of people that might be HIV positive, they're not aware of it. Like, my personal opinion is if you are HIV positive and you've been taking the medicine perfectly, when you last went to the doctor, they're saying, you know, we barely even see anything. I still think that if you are not letting the person you are about to have sex with know that you are HIV positive, especially if you are not using protection, you are a scumbag. But then to talk about the point H7 mentioned, yes, we're talking about intent to infect. We're talking about those next level douchebag of the centuries. We referenced 2 in the Wednesday video. Meant to and infected several people. And if you change the law in a way that protects those people, that's just, it's ridiculous to me. I get that we need to take away the stigma around people with HIV and people need to be more educated on the issue. But I just can't see how this helps. And then let's talk about the Thursday show. Thursday, we had the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts going at each other, the Jake Paul lawsuit, the Google Home privacy issue, and more Weinstein updates. On the Girl Scout versus Boy Scout story, Read a Book wrote, I would have loved to be in the Boy Scouts when I was little. Do y'all know how boring Girl Scouts can be? I always heard about the fun tent camping trips my brother went on while I was camping in an air-conditioned cabin with a full bathroom and fancy beds every year. They better step up their game because they're gonna lose a lot of money to the Boy Scouts. Deedles wrote, as an ambassador in Girl Scouts, I feel that it is hypocritical for Boy Scouts to not allow trans boys in, but to allow girls. Girl Scouts allow more opportunity for your future, such as the Gold Award being a near guarantee considering you have a decent GPA, or scholarships and things similar to that. Also, cookies are better than popcorn. Cough what? And the first thing I'm gonna hit on here, the most important part of both of those comments, yes, Girl Scout cookies are better than Boy Scouts popcorn. I didn't even know until last year that the Boy Scouts even had popcorn. Also, this is gonna be the most polarizing thing I say in the show, but I'm not about that Thin Mint life. I don't care if you put it in the freezer and then eat it, it's still just okay. Samoas are life. And if you're a Thin Mint person, obviously you don't agree with that. At least we could both agree that the people that like shortbread cookies the most are insane. Also, side note to the Boy Scouts, who thought of popcorn? Other than that very pivotal point to both of these comments in this story. Something I want to hit on first, around trans boys. Actually, back in January, the Boy Scouts of America said that they are fine with trans scouts. Now, the cynic in my brain here goes, okay, well, are they being progressive? That this is a positive move forward regarding trans scouts? Is this really about the family fully being involved now with the girls being allowed? Or is this a business move? You allow the most amount of people possible into your group, you make more money, everyone wins. I don't know. know. Let me know what you think. On the OK Google, set reminder for Monday to watch the Philip DeFranco show. Story. On DeFranco Elite, Lloyd wrote, I'm glad Google responded effectively, but Phil brings up an excellent point. In the age of Bluetooth and Wi-Fi recording devices, it should never be a surprise when things are recorded. We do expect a level of trust and security when we purchase these products, but ultimately that's all it is, blind trust. Yeah, and personally, I've always just been of the mindset of whatever I have around me, it can and most likely at some point will be exploited. My personal information will get out there. Someone might steal my identity. I mean, really, just the more you look at situations, the more stories come out, you realize it's not a matter of if my information is going to get out there, it's if someone after your information gets out there does something with it. It's like you're playing roulette, but if it lands on your number, you don't get an awesome payout, you get your identity stolen. And also, I think just in general, one of the reasons I gave Google props here is I would love if companies and businesses would always just acknowledge and fix situations like Google did here, and not so much how the Equifaxes of the world do. On the Jake Paul lawsuit, Ben Master wrote, I feel bad for Jake Paul being sued for something so stupid, but he's just asking for it. It's funny how the guy suing Jake Paul looks like the kind of miserable sod who would sue someone for ouchie my hearing. I hate Jake Paul, but suing for a noise emotionally distressing you is hilarious. Here's what I'll say, because we don't know the specifics of the situation. We don't know if this guy has permanent hearing loss. And so in addition to a valid claim, he also claims the emotional part. I don't know, was there no permanent damage and this guy just sees a paycheck in front of him? Maybe. But either way, this still may not come out in Jake Paul's favor. And the reason for that, like I mentioned, is the California law that we looked up about aftermarket horns. And so ultimately it ends up becoming a question of how loud was that horn? Were they using the kind of kit you can find on horn blasters? There they have horns they say you can hear from 4 miles away. In the product description, it says, warning, use this product in a safe and responsible manner at a distance of at least 100 feet from others. Proper hearing protection must be worn when using this air horn. Hearing loss or permanent damage may result from unsafe use. Never operate this product in a closed environment or close to pedestrians or others. It's the consumer's responsibility to comply with local noise ordinances and DOT sound level laws. We see parts of the horns in Jake's video, but we don't know the exact specs. So that said, if he was using something of the higher end, I mean, very much so, he could have caused permanent damage. But all of that's the legal case. The other part is he's just being a dick. And that's actually where I'm going to end today's show. I once again want to thank all you beautiful bastards for another fantastic week. Thank you for just watching, liking, sharing, subscribing, commenting. Maybe you're over at DeFrancoElite.com and you're helping fund what we're doing now. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And of course, as always, my name is Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you Monday.